I thought I'd do a mental exercise. Where's the consciousness? Where is our consciousness as human beings? Most scientists will tell you it's in our brains. The religious will tell you it's in our bodies. Maybe they would also agree it's in our brains. And the wondering almost seems to stop there. I don't hear it talked about much. So let's assume it is in our brains. We'll start there. Who I am, why I see out of these two eyes, why I've remained contiguously conscious in this body for as long as I can remember. You can only take my word for it, just as I can only take your words for it. I'm the only one I can prove who is conscious. How is it that it stayed in this body? If I were to lose an arm or a leg, probably safe to say I've never lost one of these things, but fairly safe to say I'd still be me. If I lose all my arms and legs, pretty safe to say I'd still be me. Let's take it a bit further. In Star Trek, something we've all seen, right? They have teleporters. They can teleport. It just theoretically, it's possible we could eventually make a device like this that somehow takes apart all the atoms in our bodies and puts it somewhere else. Would you still be you, assuming that everything was ordered precisely as it was before? All the atoms that are in your nervous system, your brain, ordered just as they were before. That when you materialize, you'd still be you. You'd still see out of those eyes. You probably still see if we stick to this argument that your consciousness is in your atoms, you'd rematerialize as you. So what if we were to get crazy and they start to transport you, but they have a bunch of other atoms, the atoms that make up our body, and they use their complicated machine to divide you into two people. Half of your atoms from your brain goes into one body and the other half goes into the other. If your consciousness is in your brain, which half would you be in? Would you be in both? That seems impossible. Does the universe flip a coin somehow? You end up in one or the other? Your consciousness fills out. But if your consciousness is in your atoms, the atoms that were used to make the other half of your brain in each instance of yourself, then you've taken someone else's potential consciousness, if that's where it's at. When you start to do these mental exercises, it starts to get clearer that it's not that simple. It couldn't be that simple. That our consciousness is just, it's in our brains. Well, where is it in maybe one atom? Two atoms? This cluster? Well, what if we were to keep with this experiment, making two copies of you? We put 90% of your brain into one half of yourself, and the other half gets only 10% of your brain. And the other 90% is filled in with our collection of atoms, our box of atoms, our box of spare atoms, spare parts. Seems pretty unlikely it would be the 10% copy of yourself. That's where your consciousness would be. Alright. Would you be in the 90% one? Maybe. Maybe your consciousness is in some stronghold in your brain. Just some part, some small part. Some stronghold. Consciousness stronghold. But how would nature know how to do that? The consciousness lobe, the consciousness center. How would nature, why would it care to maintain your consciousness? If you woke up one day and you weren't you, you'd still have, that new being would have all your memories and should be just as likely to survive, Darwinistically speaking. It wouldn't be necessary for consciousness, for nature to make consciousness contiguous. That's what's bizarre. But one of the men brought this to me. Darwinistically speaking, it is not important to maintain your consciousness. Yet, consciousness is somehow remained in this body. And a lot of the atoms in my body have, just about all of them, have been replaced. I can remember when I was 4, 5, 6, 7 years old. Clearly. Still me. I wish it wasn't, sometimes. But I'm stuck in this body. No matter how many atoms get swapped out for new ones. No matter what atoms are commandeered to replace dead cells. And some of your brain cells do die and get replaced. So if your consciousness could be, if it was in some center, some place, you could just get unlucky and those cells die and then you wake up the next day or replaced. See, what I'm trying to say is I don't think it is in the atoms. I think consciousness is some kind of strange anomaly. That it can be shaken loose. I think it's possible. I've heard stories about Roseanne, I think it was, and definitely Kinnison. They got into an accident and they died for a little while. And I think that might be enough. If you die temporarily, that shakes your consciousness loose. They may have died right then and there. Their consciousness, I forget exactly what happened to Roseanne. Did she have an accident too? Something like that? If you die for a little while, maybe your consciousness just flies right on out. And a new one, because your consciousness doesn't know that you're going to come back to life. It thinks that's it. And then your body's kick-started, it comes back to life, and then a new consciousness goes, oh, there's a space here. Jumps in. I've used this analogy before that I think consciousness is like, I feel like intuitively it's this. Our bodies are strings that get laid out. They get laid out. They get laid out, and our souls are like hooks that just fly through the air, like a fisherman who keeps throwing, a fly fisherman who keeps throwing out his casts. And it's only natural that there's a bunch of lines out there, that if a line suddenly appears, a baby's born, and a string gets laid out. That a hook is one of the many hooks that's flying around. However, who knows how many potential consciousnesses there are. It's only natural that a hook is going to grab that string, and then that hook and that string vanish together for a little while in our material universe. And the string isn't important, really. It's the hook. Well, they say, some scientists will say, well, that's, you'll hear a profound scientist say you have this one life. And I was watching some video on YouTube about I forget which astronomer was saying it. You have just this one life and it's so precious. And how do you know? You're just assuming. You mean to tell me across all the infinity of time that I'm here for this ostentatious moment right here, right now, only to vanish forever? That seems more, if we're guessing here, and you're guessing too, I think my guess is more probable. That I've always been here. And I think it was a Mark Twain quote. I didn't know this till after I'd put this wacky idea together. I think he said that for all the countless years, it's something like this, for all the countless years before I was alive, I seemed content enough. And I'll probably be content, I'm butchering the line, I'll be content enough after death. I mean, frankly, I kind of hope that scientist is right, whoever said it. Well, many scientists say it. That this is it, that I can never come back. I can never suffer life again. Some of us don't have great lives. Some of us aren't having fun. I think that's it. It's just, it's over. I never have to deal with bullshit again. Never have to deal with pain again. Just the lights go out. That's it. I can never come back again to be tortured or live an unhappy life. That sounds nice to me. But knowing with the way things have gone for me, why do I feel like that's not going to happen? Why do I feel like I'm not going to get off that easy? That the pain train's going to keep on moving. It's going to keep on chugging along, torturing me. It does kind of seem like it's got to be in our brain somehow. Is it the electricity? Is it something? It's so profound, I can't even really guess. And if I start to really guess where it is, I would agree if I were to go back to my first premise that it's in the brain somehow. I mean, if I chop off my arm, clearly, even under my theory that of the strings and hooks, the consciousness isn't just in the atoms themselves. It seems like it wouldn't be in the arms or legs still. That it's some kind of special thing. It's some kind of special electrical anomaly. Something that if you could just take a picture of the electrical brain waves, the electrical activity in the brain, and just put that up on a screen and say, that's you, that's you right there. The electricity moving through the tunnels of memories, the material atomic pathways of your brain. Your consciousness is that, it's the electricity or something. It's an anomaly of some sort. You know, I just love going back to Star Trek. Only Next Generation and Deep Space Nine are any good, in my opinion. But you know how they had anomalies? They pull the ship up and there'd be some strange thing, some energy field, and look at this anomaly. We don't understand it. We're just call it an anomaly. And I kind of feel like that's what our consciousness is.